So Jonathan and I are here to discuss U.S. tax court. We're going to wait about 1 more minute to see if anybody else signs on. We understand there's an audience out there and we're streaming live. So we will start in a few more seconds. Hello and welcome to Legal Aid of Arkansas's Low Income Taxpayer Clinic's Facebook Live. My name is Jennifer Gardner and I am the director of the Low Income Taxpayer Clinic known as the LITC at Legal Aid of Arkansas. The LITC represents low-income taxpayers in their controversies with the IRS and the state taxing authorities. We also educate taxpayers in their tax rights and responsibilities, and that's what we're doing here today. If you have a question at any time during this brief presentation, please submit it in the chat and we will get an answer to you promptly. You can do this even if you're watching the recording because we get the message that you have a question and we will respond to you very quickly. Today, I'm excited to have Jonathan Carter with me today to talk about U.S. Tax Court. He'll introduce himself in a moment. But in the meantime, those are our beautiful photos. We're both at Legal Aid of Arkansas. We have breaking news. As of today, there were going to be no more paper refund checks going out of the IRS dated October 1st and forward. That's what the IRS says. We don't know how that's going to be executed. It starts tomorrow. So what if you're expecting a paper check from the IRS? We don't know, and we're going to investigate and we're going to let you know. But if you're expecting a paper check from the IRS and it's not coming and you don't get a letter from the IRS, please contact us. Our information is going to be at the end of this program and we will help you track down your refund. In the meantime, for next year, and going forward, make sure that you do have a bank account. We strongly recommend that you set up a bank account with no fees or at a credit union. We strongly recommend that you not use a paid preparer's own account because they take big fees in the process of setting up that refund issuance. You can do it yourself, and you want to do it before you file a tax return so that information is on the tax return and you're ready to go. So my colleague Jonathan Carter is going to take it from here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Carter. I'm an attorney with Legal Aid of Arkansas, and I specialize and have a license to practice before the U.S. Tax Court. And I'm here today to talk about what U.S. Tax Court is and how taxpayers can get in front of the tax court to dispute their issues. So the U.S. Tax Court is a specialized court created so taxpayers can challenge determinations before paying the taxes that the IRS say that they are owed. The tax court is a federal trial court of record that is independent from the IRS and the Treasury Department. In U.S. tax court, the judges are tax practitioners, so they specialize in tax law. In tax court, there is no jury. And there's a lot of special history about how the tax court developed. For example, usually courts of record in the United States are created by Article 3 of the Constitution. But the tax court is actually created as a creature of the legislative branch under Article 1. There's a lot of history going on, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but it is a specialized court that is separate and apart from the executive branch.
Jonathan, we have a question. Where is tax court? I've never seen it.
Tax court is nationwide. So usually tax courts hold sessions in the federal district courts in particular areas. So there is what actually happens is that there are 19 national judges who basically ride a circuit and go around from different cities um, on a tax calendar, and they have special sessions in these courts so that taxpayers can dis or can talk about what their tax issues are with the IRS.
So if I file a tax court petition, do I get to choose where I go to court?
In limited circumstances, you can actually choose where you want to go because they can hear the issues anywhere. However, if you choose a particular location, you're responsible for showing up at that particular location. Most people, however, choose a location that is the closest to them. So in Arkansas, tax court is going to be held in Little Rock once a year.
Okay, so I want to get into tax court in Little Rock. What do I need to do?
So the first thing that you need to do, let's start with a basic premise that no one goes to court generally unless there is a dispute. A dispute in tax court is kicked off by when a taxpayer receives a notice of deficiency. So I want to backtrack for just a second to talk about the jurisdiction of tax court. Tax court, they listen to issues where a notice of deficiency has been issued. There are a couple of ways to get into tax court, but the primary way is through the notice of deficiency that a taxpayer receives. So that's going to be, you file your taxes, the IRS assesses the tax, and then if they determine that there is a deficiency or that the taxpayer hadn't paid all of their taxes, then they issue that notice of determination or that notice of deficiency. Once you receive that notice of deficiency, you have 90 days from when the letter was mailed to file a petition in tax court. But that's going to be the way that you get into tax court. And
we have a question. Sure. How do I know the 90 days? Is it on the notice?
The notice will specify when what your deadline is, and it's going to be that 90 days from when that letter was issued.
Okay.
So generally speaking, it's 90 days.
Okay, and it says on your slide, if you miss that deadline,
you do lose that option to go to tax court. You may have other options. Another way, just briefly, another way to dispute a tax issue is to file in federal court. But you have to pay the deficiency and then request a refund if you go to federal court. So that's the big difference. Tax court, you don't have to pay before being heard before a judge. Any other methods, you have to pay the deficiency and then sue for a refund.
Okay, so now I have my notice of deficiency.
So you have your notice of deficiency. The next thing that you would need to do is get the petition and file it. So you fill it out, you provide any supporting documentation that you have, but you don't have to do it with the petition. And then it costs $60 to file a tax court petition. For the clients that we serve, sometimes we are able to get a waiver of that fee, but generally speaking, it does cost $60 to file a petition in tax court.
Hey, Jonathan, I've never paid the fee for any of our clients at Legal Aid.
Jennifer, that's interesting. I haven't either. So usually we're able to get that waived when people apply through the Legal Aid of Arkansas's Low Income Taxpayer Plan.
Right. Okay, so I'm ready to file my petition and I got my argument going. What do I do? So
you're going to have to limit what your argument is. A lot of people, and this is just in general, they want to tell their side of the story. But, you're going to have to limit what you say to what the actual issue is. So what are those actual issues? So if the IRS says that they are denying a request or a credit, the argument against that is no, I am eligible for that credit. Here's why. If the IRS is denying an exemption, you would say, I am eligible for this exemption, and here's why. It has to be a reason against why the notice of deficiency is wrong. So, just like our slides talk about, if the IRS disallows a business expense deduction, and you believe that you are entitled to that deduction, you would provide a reason why. So those are the things that your petition is going to say, not other things about why you believe that you've been wronged.
Okay, and the counter to this is what to leave out. So I see a lot of petitions where people file the petition and I read their petition and it's not the way I would have done it. Well, everybody's, can do it their own way, but they spend a lot of time saying the IRS is unfair, I can't pay, which has nothing to do with whether they actually should have a bill for that tax. So what you want to leave out is all the extra stuff. So it makes the lawyer on the other side, their IRS lawyers on the other side, to narrow it down to exactly what we're talking about. And the quicker we can narrow it down, the quicker you can win your argument. And so just leave all the other stuff out. For example, that income that the IRS said I left off my tax return for 2022 wasn't my income. Somebody used my social security number to work. And I have a notice of deficiency for 2022 that says I didn't put that income on my tax return of $10,000, say, for example. Then they go on to say, and somebody did it for 23, and I think they did it for 24. Doesn't belong on the petition because the notice of deficiency is only for 22. Now, hopefully, when you work this out with the IRS, it helps with the other years because the information goes to the IRS after the lawyer works it out. But you got to keep it off of your petition, or the poor IRS lawyer is head's going to explode, and they're not going to figure out what it is they're going to talk to you about. So you keep it short and simple. Usually my petitions have only 4 or 5 sentences in them. So I resolved three tax court petitions in the last month that I filed in August, because we just said we knew exactly what the issue was. We went right to it and we fixed it. And it really only took like an hour. It was very, very simple. So what happens? You filed a petition. The tax court has a fillable petition right there on their website. It's the best way. Or you can fill out a form and upload it to the tax court. Either way, it's electronic. Or you can mail it, but then you better keep proof of mailing and all that. Once it gets there, the tax court will let you know right away that they got it. It's right away. They'll let you know. If you are doing it electronically, they'll let you know electronically. If you did it on paper, they'll send you on paper. Then the IRS has a couple months to file their answer. Now, because they're very busy, a lot of times they just say, no, we're right. And that's all they say on the answer. And then you start the conversation with the IRS lawyer. So probably you're going to have to provide documents to prove your case. But once you get the answer, you're going to know exactly the person to send them to. You don't send them to tax court, you send them to the IRS lawyer. Then if you don't settle the case right away, they put it on the trial calendar in Arkansas, we only have trial calendars once a year. So you really usually have a lot of ramp up time to settle your case before it even gets on the calendar. Once it gets on the calendar, the IRS is going to be in a rush to settle it because the case is settled. Almost all cases are settled. And then once the decision has been made, when you guys come to an agreement, I owe an extra $500, the IRS owes me 1,000, whatever the difference, whatever the decision is, there's a written document that's submitted by the IRS lawyer to the tax court, and then the tax court enters the judgment. Then it goes back to the IRS body itself, and then they have to process it. You owe extra money, you don't owe extra money, you're getting a refund, they have to go process it, and the lawyers are done once the entry of the decision. Oh, and do I need a lawyer?
So the IRS or the tax court is set up so that pro se taxpayers can handle their own case. And another special.
Wait. Jonathan, what does pro se mean?
Pro se is it's a Latin term that basically means that someone is representing themselves.
Got it. Okay.
So thank you for bringing that up so I can clarify. So pro se taxpayers have the opportunity to represent themselves in tax court. And again, the tax court, the main thing that the IRS is trying to do is settle these cases. There aren't a lot of trials in tax court. So the whole process is set up so that someone can represent themselves. And there is a special category of tax cases, small cases, where there is $50,000 or less at dispute between the IRS. In the small cases, there's relaxed rules of evidence that makes it easier for pro se litigants, pro se taxpayers to represent themselves. But the IRS has come up with a checklist of things to do to make sure that that pro se litigant is staying on task and doing the things that they need to do to settle their case with the IRS. So the first thing, of course, is making sure that you have the contact information for the IRS attorney that's going to handle the case. So you want to make sure that you and the IRS, that you are in communication with each other, and that you have asked the IRS, the attorney, for documents, and vice versa, the documents that you need to send them. And remember to only send copies of the documents that you have. You keep the originals. And then the IRS will schedule any settlement days that you have before, at your location.
Jonathan, I know we have a national audience, but we're talking to our Kansans. We generally don't have settlement days. Because we just don't have that many cases that don't get settled in tax court. And maybe one of the reasons is the next item on the list.
One of the elements on the checklist is, have you reached out to your low-income taxpayer clinic? And fortunately, we have one here in Arkansas. Jennifer, of course, you're the director. I, along with other attorneys in legal aid, assist with the cases. So yes, reaching out to your LITC is always important. Even though you can represent yourselves, having an attorney certainly smooths the transactions just a little bit, makes it a little easier. I know, Jennifer, you have been in communication with a lot of the attorneys that represent the IRS on the calendar call for the Arkansas cases. I've had interactions with them as well, so that rapport sometimes makes it just easier. And it's just one less thing that someone that wants to dispute an IRS determination is just one less thing that they have to kind of actively think about. So It's always, we
So
always
and
recommend.
as an aside, Jonathan, we hear stories of taxpayers essentially getting into shouting matches with the IRS lawyers, and that's just not going to happen with us
Right.
because it's not us. You know, we just represent the taxpayer, and we can can calmly go through the issues with the IRS lawyers. It doesn't mean we will win but because the IRS is also trying to get to the right answer. I mean, these cases I've settled, two of them, the IRS said, you win everything you said. So they're going to get their two refunds. So it's just us agreeing on what the facts are and then applying the law to the facts. And then we get to an agreed answer. Whereas if it were my tax, I might be raising my voice too.
And again, that's what helps keep all of the unnecessary things out of a petition. We also serve as a filter between our clients and the IRS attorney. So we can do things like weed out some of the things that aren't relevant when clients send us documents and we say, this is not relevant because of this reason. This, if you have a notice of deficiency from 2022 and you send me information from 2024, I will weed that out before talking and sending those documents to the IRS attorney. So it's just easier for us to kind of handle and be that serve as that filter between the IRS and our clients.
And remember that we always settle. I mean, it's just, even though you really want to go in front of the judge. So I collected some statistics. The IRS received approximately 21,000 petitions in 2024, which was a low year. But some years it can be 35,000 petitions. Nobody can have that many trials. In 2024, there were 185 trials, up from 174 the year before. So that's less than 1%. That's way less than 1% go to trial. And the people who go, the ones that go to trial are Amazon or Walmart, with big teams of lawyers. So but much more interesting is the fact that at trial, the IRS wins more than 90% of the time. More than 90% of the time. So that's a warning to you. If you're representing yourself, we're not trying to discourage you from representing yourself if you want to have your argument with the IRS. But if the IRS tells you they are willing to go to trial, they're sure they're going to win. And you may lose some of your arguments that they might have been willing to compromise because you went to trial. So just settle. Listen to what they're saying. We strongly suggest you settle. We will settle your case for you if you need. Now, if there's an interesting brand new legal issue, we would be willing to take it to trial, but we haven't found any of those yet. And I've been doing this for 14 years. So, and our colleagues rarely go to trial too. So, having said all this, if you haven't noticed a deficiency, if you are, or if you're already in tax court and you want some help at any stage of the process, here's our contact phone number. We have lots of lawyers at Legal Aid, and we have 4 admitted to U.S. tax court. And we also have volunteers who are admitted to tax court who can help us. So we have a range of people who can help you. You can also apply online for our help, and we'll end up probably calling you. So thanks for joining us on this exciting Facebook Live. I really enjoyed doing this one about tax court. Tax court is near to our hearts, both of us. And tune in next month for our next Facebook Live. Bye-bye.
Bye.